About here, a lot of things to be thankful for, and certainly if you're a fan of the Ravens, this is an opportunity. The team's going to go up to Pittsburgh on Christmas and either going to curdle our eggnog or we're going to have one heck of a celebration on Sunday evening. This guy knows both sides of that as a player who went to Pittsburgh and won a little bit, lost a little bit, and certainly played in some high-stakes competitions, as his Super Bowl 35 ring will show you. We don't have him on often enough. I always do love having him back on. He's at Comcast Sportsnet. You can follow his journey out on Twitter at BJack50. We welcome the great Brad Jackson back onto the program. Brad, man, Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. How are you, man?
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Thanks, Nestor. Thanks for having me. I'm doing good. We're still in the hunt. You know, the Ravens flock and Ravens Nation, we're still in the hunt. So it's like the movie Dumb and Dumber. You know, so you're saying there's still a chance, and that's all you want.
Well, okay, so let's start with the Eagle. I mean, there's a lot of meat on the bone here, right? I mean, a lot to talk about. Your thoughts with 6 minutes left to go in the game when the Ravens go, commando here and decide to start throwing the football down on the goal line instead of running the ball. I could not have envisioned a worse scenario for John Harbaugh to lose a game of this magnitude than the last 6 minutes of the game and literally everything that unfolded until Mosley and Powers got involved there on the two-pointer.
Unbelievable. I think Coach Harbaugh reiterated it best when he said it was probably the worst play call in the history because, and, you know, when you think about it, there's no excuse for it. There's no reason for it. Ravens flock almost broke the internet. You know, we know Kim Kardashian almost did it a couple years ago, but the Ravens flock literally blew up the internet as to why they weren't running the football. There was some great memes with the Kermit the Frog, and you know, I don't know. I had retweeted one of it out that I think one of your followers had actually tweeted out, which was hysterical. And yeah, I mean that call right there almost ended the Ravens' chances of potentially carrying on to try to win this division and make it into the playoffs. And you know, and I said this before, I've said it on Comcast Sports on television. I see why Buddy Ryan, God rest his soul, way back in the day, punched Kevin Gilbride, the offensive coordinator of the Houston Oilers, when he kept throwing the football and they had the game won. Because that's why I don't coach. I would literally want to kill a coordinator when we're up by 10. The will of the Eagles is about to be exasperated by just running the football, which you were having success at doing, taking valuable time off the clock, and then, you know, having the ability to put a minimum of 3 points on the board, and instead it's a turnover, and luckily the defense held them to 3 points, but that still gave an opportunity for the Eagles to have a heartbeat and almost cost the Ravens major.
You know what? I've said this, and I don't look. You've been listening to me for 20 years. I'm not the guy running and firing the coach on Monday or, you know, anointing the backup quarterback. We don't say stupid things around here, but I'll tell you, and I like John Harbaugh a lot. That's the kind of thing that gets a coach fired, right? I mean, that 2-point conversion, if that goes the other way and the season is effectively over because of that, that is the kind of thing that really gets heavy for a head coach. And I mean, you're a baseball guy. Your kid plays baseball as well. What Buck Showalter did with Zach Britton that night, I said that's going to get real heavy. You know, next year when they don't make the playoffs, and you know that's going to be the lasting image until you win a Super Bowl again. And John's got a Super Bowl. Joe's got a Super Bowl. They've been trying to take Joe's away now for 3.5 years, right? Like he never did it before. Not good for Joe. Not good for Marty Morningwig. Not good for John Harbaugh. But all that said, it washes all out with a 27-20 victory in Pittsburgh on Christmas night and a chance to win the division and host a home game on January 7th. All that's still sitting there. But, boy, Sunday afternoon really had to have you scratching your head a little bit, right? Just from a confidence level.
Well, all the way around. I mean, it was completely bewildering. You know, I've talked about it for weeks and weeks. We've talked about the lack of balance. We've talked about them throwing the football 40, 50 times. You know, but at the end of the day, you know, a couple weeks ago when they beat up a terrible Miami team, and it was a win. Miami obviously had a big win over the Jets. That's one of the losses that is still a head-scratcher that the Ravens had, you know, a month or so ago, you know, before the bye week when they lost to the Jets in New York, which, Coach Bowles is on a hot seat. But you're 100% correct. I'm never one to call out coaches or players. I was a player. I've been around great coaches. I know coaches coach and players play, owners own. I understand all that. And a lot of times a coach will have a great call and it's bad execution. So it's one of those situations where Coach Marty Morningweek may have made the call, but Joe Flacco, as a 9-year vet, Super Bowl MVP, the third, fourth highest paid player in the league, and a guy that has one of the highest paid contracts in the league, has got to be smart enough to check out of it or say, time out, let's talk about this. Let's make sure Coach Marty Morningweek didn't fall down and get a concussion on the sideline. Do we really want to throw the football here? And you heard Joe talk about it on Sunday where he was selfishly happy about it because he thought Marty was going to give him an opportunity for a third touchdown. This goes back to where it's a different day and age of football, Nestor. It's an opportunity for guys to pad their numbers, pad their stats, and we know Joe hasn't had more than a pedestrian-like season this year, unfortunately, with the turnovers and the lack of touchdown passes and not playing to as well as I'm sure he would hope, and I'm sure I know the coaches would hope, and we all as fans of the Ravens and the team would have hoped him to play as being one of those truly top 10 tiered quarterbacks. He went into the game rated 25th. That's just the reality of it. The numbers don't lie. The people can say whatever they want, but the film and the eye in the sky doesn't lie. The numbers show exactly who you are. As God rest his soul, Denny Green would say, you are what they say you are. And that's what the numbers say right now. And the turnovers in the red zone continue to be costly. Joe Flacco's turned the football over 10 games, in 14 games this season. It can't happen. He's got to take care of the football in the red zone. Even if Marty Morningweek calls that, you don't have to throw it there. You don't have to stare down Steve Smith. You have to understand and be smart enough that may be a play that I need to check out of, or I may need to make sure that I'm extra sharp on my progression to not make that mistake and turnover. Because, again, 6 of the last 7 games since the bye week, 4 games in a row with a turnover from your franchise quarterback, in the 6 games of 14 with 2+ turnovers in a game. It can't happen, and you're in a dogfight. You go from stumping out the life, for the most part, of the Eagles with a minimum of field goal right there.
Yeah, I mean, that game was over, right? I mean, and that game was won relatively impressively, especially if they push it in with 2 or 3 runs and say, here's the ball back, it's 4:40 left, you're down
points.
17. You know what I'm saying? If that's the
and
way it goes down,
34 points.
You feel like you had a hell of a Sunday afternoon. Instead,
it feels different.
Look, I'm never one to complain about a victory, right? I mean, during your era, I've been in the winning locker rooms. I've been in the losing locker room. I've been in the Super Bowl in your locker room holding the Lombardi Trophy standing next to you. And I know what 4-12 and fired coaches look like. I've seen the whole thing here over 2 decades. I've never seen anything like that on Sunday. And especially, I went over to Flacco's locker after it all sort of broke down, and he and I had a little OTR on it. And I said, y'all are smart people here. John's a smart guy. Marty's a smart guy. How did it happen? I mean, literally, how you're all smart people. What were you thinking, And right. Joe's like, I think we were thinking they were on their heels. Let's just end the game, and that's clearly what they were thinking, trying to throw the football there.
And 3 points would have done the same thing with another 2.5, 3 minutes taken off the clock by running the football down their throat.
I'm a clock guy. I'm with you, dude. The clock is the game. Once the clock says 0, you win, So you're in the game with the clock when you have the lead and the ball in the fourth quarter, and that's when my daddy said you got to run the ball, right? I mean, everybody would tell you that, right?
Run it. Well, and you saw the same thing that occurred, and let's take it to the other side of the country. Richard Sherman with the Seattle Seahawks, when they tried to throw it again on 1 yard, you saw him as the leader of that team get up off the bench, the defensive bench, go to Pete Carroll and make sure that him and Darren Bevel knew, hey, we lost an opportunity to win back-to-back championships because you want to be cute and throw the football to pad stats so your name can get out there as a coordinator that had a quarterback that threw for 4,500 yards and 25, 30 touchdowns. But you're also not understanding you're putting your team, your defense, and victories at risk by doing that. So a lot of times in this day and age of fantasy, in this day and age, and you've seen it, Nestor, where now all of a sudden a coach can have a quarterback that's thrown for big numbers and had big numbers, but they also have big numbers in interceptions and turnovers that have hurt the team when you break down a season and cost them games, but they've threw for an exorbitant amount of numbers, and all of a sudden everyone's like, well, he threw for 4,000 yards and he had 22, 25 touchdowns. But
my man, when you got here,
too many turnovers.
Yeah, when you got here, Vinny was doing that. It's because we were losing 24-3 at halftime every week. You know,
exactly. There's a difference in that. And the Ravens, our identity, Baltimore is a blue collar, tough city. We are and have to be a city and a team that runs the football. We are not going to be the greatest show on turf. You're not going to be Arizona, and you're seeing how much Arizona is struggling because they want to throw the football so much. Teams, our number one job, Nestor, and you know this, you've been around the game long enough to know, defense's number one job every week is 1, stop the run. 2, make them one-dimensional. 3, win third down. Well, guess what? When the Ravens abandoned the run, and they did a better job of sticking with it yesterday, much to T. West, Towson Grant, and obviously Dixon is still getting some carries there and there. They had a productive day running the football. But you can't get good at doing something if you don't stick with it and stay with it. So when you're having games of 14 rushes attempts, 16 rushes attempts, 9 rushing attempts. When you're doing that, it's one of those situations where you're not even getting to practice in the live action because you're not banging in practice anymore with the new CBA. Practices are pretty much glorified walkthroughs. And so you're not getting that much needed reps and work to be good at running the football. So when December and January comes, when you have to run the football, you're not doing it. And unfortunately, the Ravens sometimes make themselves one-dimensional by just abandoning the run or not even sticking with it. The biggest play last Monday night, and you know this, happened in the fourth quarter off of play action. Tom Brady to Blunt, sucked up Eric Weddle, sucked up the linebackers. All of a sudden, Eric Weddle freezes his hips. He's looking in the backfield, expecting it to be a handoff with 6 minutes to go, a 23-20 game. Tom Brady pulls it back out. All of the play action. And they didn't rush for 100 yards, that being the Patriots in that game, but it was them sticking with it at times that froze Eric Weddle just enough to allow Hogan to get behind him and beat him for a 79-yard touchdown and a nail in the coffin. Running the football is paramount. That's why the best team in the AFC right now, the New England Patriots, continue to move forward, is because they have 3 running backs in James, White, and Blunt that are getting carries. They're all sharing it, and they're forcing defenses, Nestor, to have to remain in your run and pass keys, and that opens up the play action. Joe Flacco is phenomenal when he has that running game and the play action with that big cannon on his right shoulder. He's able to make any throw in the National Football League. If you run the ball and help him out with play action, there could be good things happen down the road, much like we saw in 2012 when Jim Caldwell took over as offensive coordinator. Commitment to run, and that's why Joe Flacco had such a phenomenal postseason run, because all the pressure wasn't on him, and there wasn't the opportunity for the defense to make more plays and by being one-dimensional going into football games.
Always love talking football with Brad Jackson. He is BJack50 out on Twitter as well as at Comcast Sportsnet. And anywhere purple is served and sold here in the community. Of course, a Super Bowl 35 champion and a big Jen Strong supporter here over the last couple of years as well. You know, for you being a defensive guy, it's one thing to say, well, Flacco threw the pick. We got a 10-point lead. Let's go out, get the ball back, and, put an end to this thing. A rookie quarterback led 2 drives in the last 6 minutes at home in a depleted stadium. I don't know what's going on there. We can get to that in a couple of minutes. You live here and work here too, as to why people aren't using the tickets they've actually paid for or can't find anyone to use, or how they might melt on a 50-degree day when it's going to rain. But the defense, this wasn't a good look for the Ravens defense down the line either, right? Just a lot of yards on the ground has to be a little bit disturbing with Le'Veon Bell staring at us on Christmas.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I said this last night or a couple of days ago on Comcast Sportsnet, Nestor, where it was I'm not alarmed. I'm a little bit alarmed. I'm not concerned. But when you talk about, again, they kind of held the Patriots rushing game down. But what concerned me was you gave up, 500 yards total offense almost to the Patriots a week ago on Monday night against the Patriots, and then you come right back. And I understand, it's a short week, but like you said, a rookie quarterback who has been pretty much average going into the game. Carson Wentz, obviously, was the 27th rated quarterback. The offense wasn't about middle of the road. The Ravens were 16 total. I think, the Eagles were 18, points per game. They were separated by one or two spots, 20th and 22nd, if I recall. His numbers were kind of the same. He went into the game with, 6 or 7 games with a turnover, 6 of the last 7, including 4 in a row, 5 games with 2+ turnovers. So similar from a rookie to franchise quarterback and Super Bowl MVP Flacco. But the running game without Darren Sproles, the leading rusher, third leading receiver, I really thought, and I said this on Sunday in Ravens Kickoff, the pregame show that we have on Comcast, that I hope the Ravens were going to take Ryan Matthews lightly because, as you know from covering the NFL, Ryan Matthews in San Diego for a certain number of years was a very good, productive back with a couple years of over 1,000 yards. And it was just completely surprising that the Eagles were on their 5th starting right tackle. Their 5th starting right tackle, other than Jason Peter, the left tackle, and other than Kelsey, the Bearcat, and starting center and Pro Bowler there. They had 3 other guys that were just popping, filling guys, and they went out there and ran the football far too good, 169 yards to be exact, and allowed Ryan Matthews to have 128 and a touch on 20 carries. That I'm not concerned, but I'm alarmed.
Well, but you got to be concerned with how many plays they ran. I mean, part of the game was completely out of balance in that way. I mean, even though they had the 10-point lead at the end, Philadelphia had the ball as long as they wanted the ball, kind of, sort of, especially in the third quarter, right?
36 minutes total. You're 100% correct. They held the time of possession to 36 minutes total, for the game. The Ravens only had it for 23 minutes. So, and you saw the game. We all saw the game. The wind was whipping, the rain was coming. They didn't even try to throw the football down the field. It was literally, especially when the wind was really going crazy, it was handoff, screen. Handoff, screen. Maybe a couple slants here and there, if it was longer than 3rd and 6. And that was what is alarming to me, is that if the Ravens do what they're supposed to do as the number 1 rush defense in the league, this game probably should have been 27-3 at best. And 30-3 if they don't turn the football over. I mean, and they were able, that being the Eagles, to remain in this game, Nestor, because of their ability to do what no one had done all season long, and that was control the line of scrimmage to that point. Yes, Dallas did it. Obviously, Zeke had 95 yards in that game. We all know about the second week of the season. Browns, Isaiah Crowell had a big day there. But a lot of that came on an 80, 85-yard touchdown run, and then he was pretty much silent the rest of the game. And so for me, it's alarming that you're going into play Pittsburgh, which now seems to have found their foot, offensively. They found their footing offensively, and they're starting to do things. We know what Le'Veon did a couple weeks ago against the Bills, but, that was a snow game. The Bills just didn't show up. Yesterday against the Bengals, he was pretty effective. Again yesterday, but, the Bengals did a good job. He was 23 of 93 yesterday, 5 for 38 receiving-wise. So, this is a different Steelers team than what the Ravens saw coming out the bye when Ben was, 2-3 weeks off of knee surgery.
Well, they haven't really played the Steelers full strength, right? I mean, Roethlisberger's always nicked up. Bell's been out. Obviously their wide receivers haven't been right just from the offseason heading to this season. And so, they're going to get the best shot of the Steelers. I mean, it feels like every time we've played the Steelers, there's been some Charlie Batch or something crazy going on. This is kind of a for all the marbles thing. And look, the Ravens have bloodied some noses up there. I mean, there's no doubt about it. The Ravens have owned this thing lately, but I don't like the way either side is trending. I think Pittsburgh's trending up. The Ravens are trending sideways a little bit right now, and they're going to have 3 hours to sort of fix the season, fix all the problems, the loss to the Jets, this crazy thing that almost happened to them on Sunday, the over-the-top pass with Weddle and how Des Bryant beat him and no Jimmy Smith, and Odell Beckham beat him and there's no Jimmy Smith, and but there's probably not going to be any Jimmy Smith, and I think that when we look back on Sunday night, if the Ravens lose, we're going to talk about them not having Jimmy Smith again, right?
Well, and that's unfortunate, and we've started to see this the last couple of years, and that's becoming – I'm concerned about that. When it's the big games and you have the number 1 corner and you're supposed to be the number 1 corner and you're getting paid at the number 1 corner, well, hey, like Josh Norman had down the road down in D.C., we're paying you to be here. We need you to show up and play against these big-time wide receivers. Like, these are the games we need you at. We don't need you. If you have to miss a game, and I know injuries occur, but you have to find a way everybody's hurt this time of the year in the National Football League. You have to find some kind of way to make sure you're on the field, because even by you being on the field presence-wise, and we've seen this throughout the history of the game, even if a guy's not 100% as an offensive player, even if he's out there, the defense has to pay attention to him. Well, it's the same thing for an offense. Even if Jimmy Smith's out there and he can only play a cover 2 corner and we'll keep help over the top, we're not going to make him chase any deep balls or lock him down man-to-man. Guess what? Him being out there is enough for an offensive coordinator and Ben Roethlisberger to respect that and make sure that, you know what, let's make sure that we kind of stay away from him. So you need Jimmy Smith. We can't continue to have these excuses and these reasons why. At the end of the day, like you said, the Steelers are finally healthy for the first time, I think, on their offensive line. Ramon Foster's first game back at the starting right guard, so their whole offensive line will be intact for the first time in a couple years since playing the Ravens. The Ravens touted, and you know this because you cover the team very closely, and you're there in the building every day that it's open almost, that, hey, you know what, we're at full strength. A couple weeks ago, we're getting healthy at the right time. Everybody's coming back. Well, guess what? Now it's all for the marbles. No excuses, no explanations, as I was taught by the great Tony Dungy. And everything that you want is going to be there at 4:30 on Christmas evening, Christmas afternoon. And either you're going to open up your present and it's going to be an opportunity to go to Cincinnati, which is going to be a tough, season finale where they've lost 4 in a row to close out the season when it's been the last game in the Queen City, and make your way to the playoffs, or you're going to have a bunch of coal by not handling your business. And Nestor, you've been around this thing for 20-plus years. There's no better way that it should come down to than Baltimore versus Pittsburgh, whether it's here or whether it's there, for the division title, for the right to go to the playoffs, for the right to advance in the playoffs, for the right to go to the Super Bowl, as we've seen a couple years ago, or I guess it's longer than a couple years ago.
Feels like a couple years
AFC Championship. But, hey, it doesn't get any better, and it shouldn't get any better. This is the way the football guys want it. And this will be grown man football. You can't come out there on 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, trying to be cute and pass the ball all over the place. You're going to have to line up in the cold weather of the Big Ketchup Bottle in Heinz Field, and you're going to have to knock somebody off the ball. You're there. We're here. I know it's a run. You know it's a run. Best man win. And that's what it's going to come down to. The first team that blinks will be the team that loses. I know from playing in this rivalry far too many times, regular season and postseason, if you blink, then that's a team that loses, unfortunately, and you can't have it any better way, buddy.
Dude, you're getting me all fired up now. I mean, you're making me get on the plane to Pittsburgh Christmas Day, dog.
You got a couple days first. You still got some Christmas shopping to do.
We're going to move Christmas to Monday, I think. I mean, I'm still in negotiation with family members.
They'll understand.
It's a big game, man. I mean, come on. It's for all the marbles.
Everything.
And I would agree with you. Now, just last thing for you, Brad. In Vegas right now, if you think the Ravens are going to win 2 games in a row on the road, not just cover, win, and be playing at home January 7th or 8th, you could probably do some real damage out there. I mean, the odds are stacked, and this is a team that hasn't won on the road since September 25th. So, our odds aren't good. I wouldn't say I don't like our odds on this, but I do think they can go to Pittsburgh and win on Christmas Day. I don't think it's outrageous. Will they? Time will tell. But this, if they're playing at home on January 7th or 8th against whoever, Denver, Miami, Oakland, Kansas City, whoever it would be, they will have earned. They will have earned it. Right? They will have earned it. Right? I mean, literally. Right?
No question. There's no. The 6 teams in the AFC and NFC, all 12 teams. They all have earned the right. This isn't like Ohio State and that bullcrap college playoff where you can be 3rd in your conference. You're not getting 3rd in the division and getting to the playoffs because people like you and because you were good for 8 or 9, 10 previous weeks. The National Football League, and this is why the playoffs in the National Football League are pure, is because you have had to earn the right over a 16-week marathon to get into the playoffs, and therefore, that's the team that earns it. If the Baltimore Ravens go to Pittsburgh, and I firmly believe they can win in Pittsburgh, time will tell, as you said. They can win in Cincinnati, but time will tell, as you said, as also that because they haven't played well in the Queen City. A.J. Green could be back for that final game. Some people say, well, he may not come back. Guess what? He's close to 1,000 yards. I think he's about 40 yards short of 1,000. That's another big incentive and bonus in his contract Plus, it would be NFL history, as he'll be one of the first and few players to have 1,000 yards every year of starting his career for the 9 years that he's been in this league. So that's a big deal for him. I know he's getting a little bit healthy. They thought he was going to play yesterday. And if you don't think, and you know Marvin Lewis just as well as I do, if not better, if you don't think that what could potentially be Marvin Lewis's last game as the Cincinnati Bengals head coach, as a lot of people are contemplating and thinking that may be the case because of the way the season went south, that team is not going to come play their heart out for him and have the opportunity to prevent the heated and hated Ravens from making the playoffs, the Ravens are sadly mistaken. If they win...
But they would be helping Pittsburgh.
Absolutely.
And I know they hate Pittsburgh.
They hate it. Trust me, I've interned with Marvin and helped coach the linebackers out there for the last couple of years during training camp. There is just as much hate for Pittsburgh as there is for Baltimore. The hate is equal. So I think that if the Ravens do take care of business and they put themselves in this situation by losing some games they should have won, the Giants has won, the Jets obviously is another one to think about. They put themselves in this situation and predicament. But if they do win it, they've earned the right to be in the playoff, and they'll host a playoff game here, and then nothing else matters. The regular season, the numbers, the stats, nothing else matters. Now you're in a 60-minute contest to be the best team on the field that day. You don't have to worry about the Patriots or the Raiders or the Chiefs or whoever else may be out there on their games. You just need to beat the team that's on the field that day for those 60 minutes and then go on to the next week. And then what we saw with us in 2000 and what we saw with the Ravens in 2012, survive in advance, in the words of Jim Valvano.
Hey, I tell you what, man, have a great week with your family, great Christmas and a holiday. We will see you before the weekend's over. And, hey, it's all we can ask for, right? Christmas and the Ravens and the Steelers and family around. Life is good right now, Brad Jackson.
Doesn't get better. Take care, buddy. Thank you. God bless. Thanks for having me, and have a very Merry Christmas to you as well.
Always dig having Brad Jackson on. He is BJack50 out on Twitter. You can follow his journey there, as well as the Comcast Sports Net and the NBC Sports Network as well. I got to say them both. I'm working on that in the 2017, part of my resolution. You can find me out the Bio Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. Reminder, London trip is on sale. If you want to join us for the London adventure next fall, everything's there on the website at WNST.net. We're offering a $100 discount this week for those who want to purchase as holiday gifts, and we're already saving you a ton of money. If you go check out the pricing, you will see that. We put together a pretty special deal, so hope everybody goes and checks that out. Nasty at WNST.net finds me on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and streaming live on our Facebook Live, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We got CJ Mosley at Adams Jeep on Tuesday night, and next week, Mike Wallace at Adams Jeep in Aberdeen on Tuesday night. We'll be swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry and for the DKMS. Stick with us. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.